Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grow With Us. My name is Evan Barton, and I'm your host who helps create conversations with the innovators and leaders of a growing tech center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Grow With Us podcast highlights in-Tulsa talent's work of bridging Tulsa talent with tech opportunities and the revolutionary work around the city. In-Tulsa's mission is to connect talented individuals and companies to stimulate economic growth in Tulsa and to create more prosperous communities across the region. Each episode, Grow With Us discusses the growth of opportunities, the growth of communities striving for change, or the tech and innovation that is changing the landscape of Tulsa. On this episode of Grow With Us, we are in conversation with Tyrance Billingsley, the executive director and founder of Black Tech Street. Tyrance, it's super great to have you on. Welcome to Grow With Us.
Happy to be here.
This is a long time coming. You've actually been on the guest list probably since I started.
Yeah, well, Tulsa's wild, so it takes time to align schedules, even though we see each other every day.
I know. Yeah, one of the main reasons why is that I have heard about Black Tech Street ever since I moved back. So this is good. We're gonna get to chat.
Absolutely, I'm excited.
Tyrance, go ahead and jump in and tell us your story in kind of whatever way you feel comfortable.
My story, okay. Tyrance Billingsley, born and raised Tulsan. I've always had a passion for this city, partially because I'm a relative of race massacre survivors. Something I didn't learn until the year 2020, actually. But I'd always grown up with that, some of the history and understanding of what was in Tulsa once upon a time. So, my story. So I've always kind of had two key drives in me. I've always kind of had my hands around, and that's entrepreneurship slash innovation, and then the other is kind of politics. And the reason for that has always been that I've always felt that I've always been a kind of person that says I need to be where the pulse is. Where's the influence that's going to allow me to make this world a better place for the people who live there. Politics and entrepreneurship were the two areas I identified because one of them is creating policy for people's lives. The other is creating the new things that change the way we live. So nothing outside of those two. So initially I thought I was going to go the political route first. So, and I can attest to that. I graduated from, Booker T. Washington High School, class of 2014, greatest class in the history of the school.
I'll give you that. Y'all are pretty good.
Fact, yes. Okay, all right. So, but it was actually the start of my senior year when I had a chance to work on Mayor Kathy Taylor's re-election campaign. And, we ended up losing. But when I got on that campaign, that's when I really got to see that was the first time I really said, Tulsa's best days are not behind it. Tulsa's best days are coming. And that was because I got to see all the new development and all some of the new things that were coming to Tulsa. So I said, you know what? Maybe leaving Tulsa is not the best thing for me right now. Maybe I need to stay here, get my feet in the soil more so, and position myself in a way that I can be a positive force on this wave of development that's coming. That in combination with the fact that upon graduating high school, I was not where I needed to be maturity-wise to go off to a 4-year university, in my opinion. So me knowing those two things led to me staying in Tulsa. I went to Tulsa Community College where I kind of found my stride. Initially pursuing a political route, where I was president of student government. Then from there, I served as president of student government for the state of Oklahoma, got elected to the Oklahoma Student Government Association, From there, I chaired the advisory board for the Oklahoma State Regents for Higher Education, helping advise them on education policy to make for students. And from there, that led me to a internship with Mayor G.T. Bynum, working in his office, working on economic development and civic engagement. And while I was there, I was kind of in the community, and I was simultaneously kind of apprenticing under State Senator Kevin Matthews and State Representative Regina Goodwin. So at some point, really it was 2016, late 2016, as I was pursuing a political route, I continued to study entrepreneurship, continued to study innovation. So while I was in politics, I was reading books on entrepreneurship and innovation, and something clicked in me one day, and I said, you know what? Politics is important, but the things that change this world are not going to be policies made by politicians. They're going to be insane innovations created by entrepreneurs and people wanting to make the world better. So I said, if I was to die tomorrow out of politics and entrepreneurship, which one would I be okay saying I at least did one of them? And I said, you know what? entrepreneurship was more important. So I looked to combine my two passions, and I founded a civic tech startup called City4, which was built to be a one-stop shop for administering city services to citizens. I want to say 20, going on 21 when I founded the company. I had a co-founder in his 40s with a full-time family. A lot that I didn't know. So, I mean, you can imagine.
Yeah,
Didn't ultimately end up panning out.
That's a venture, though.
It was
awesome.
a venture, but I mean, it got me a lot of experience. It didn't end up panning out, but it got me experience, intro into the startup world, and it ended up getting me an entrepreneurial fellowship with the George Kaiser Family Foundation, where I got strapped to a comic by the name of Mike Bosch, and and I was taken on a ride with him right before he launched the Tinto, and so yeah, I got hands-on knowledge of the VC world, entrepreneurial ecosystems, what makes them scale, what makes them fail, things like that. So that kind of led me to where I'm getting at now. So after I had this experience and I really thought about what I wanted to have happen in Tulsa, I kind of began to ask myself the question, what could Black Wall Street have been had it been supported and not destroyed? And when I looked at the level of tenacity that it took for these entrepreneurs to build these incredible businesses during Jim Crow, the smashing through walls, the out of the box thinking, a lot of that reminded me of the tech industry. And that kind of led me to this three-pronged epiphany. One, tech is one of the only industries you can build intergenerational wealth in 7 to 10 years and via successful exit, whether it be to the high company multiple or some of the lucrative opportunities that come through the workforce. Two, tech is the core medium through which global innovation and the creation of new wealth generating markets takes place consistently. And, by the year 2030, there are projected to be as many as 4.3 million vacant, high paying tech jobs due to a tech talent shortage. So when I thought about all three of these things, I not only saw an incredible wealth building opportunity for Black people through the tech industry, I kind of saw the Black Wall Street vision pushed to a new horizon. So that led me to surmise, had Black Wall Street been supported and not destroyed, it would be nothing other than a premier Black tech ecosystem. So that's where the name Black Tech Street came from, and that's what the mission of our org is. We're working to rebirth Black Wall Street as a Black tech ecosystem, but also catalyze this movement that kind of sees Black people embrace tech in the tech industry as a means to build wealth and impact the world.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Wow. That's the first time I've heard you say that. Kind of in that, with that, I guess that was the bookended way of doing it and getting all the way through. I love it. So I want to touch on some stuff there that I think is really, really awesome. You've got lots of experience with big name people here in town, which is so freaking cool. Like Kathy Taylor, Senator Kevin Matthews. I bet those experiences with those people that have really made their whole careers about changing Tulsa and kind of changing Oklahoma for underserved communities, like that's awesome. I hope those experiences were super meaningful for you.
They were very meaningful, and learning at the feet of people is really interesting because everybody's different.
Yeah.
And when you're with a leader, a lot of times you learn how to relate to them. You learn, what should I emulate of this person? What of this person is really something that may be a flaw, or what if it is a different style? So being with those, I would say Kathy, Kevin, Representative Goodwin, Mike Bosch, also being in proximity to them really helped me think about a lot about how I wanted to operate, even independently of the specific discipline that I was studying under them.
Yeah, because I have to imagine that. I mean, just knowing those four people and really their reputations and legacies, those are really four key different areas.
Yeah.
I mean, each one has a kind of a civic charge that they feel like they embody in their work, and so that feels like such a cool way to craft your own lane too. So that's awesome.
It was an interesting experiences, all of them.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I feel like this is kind of tied into the answer to this question, but like, how has your relationship with Tulsa kind of changed over the years? I think two things that I can already kind of see coming up for you is that your realization of kind of this ancestral connection to the Black Wall Street Massacre, and then also you living here and being a part of it yourself those are also things that are part of your life. So kind of before I answer the question for you, how is your relationship with Tulsa been?
Hmm. If I was to sum them up in like movie titles, the original relationship would be Get Out.
But that's a good way to do it.
Would be Get Out initially. You know, when I was a teenager, didn't really know much about the city. My initial relationship would be Get Out. You know, it kind of evolved more so, to use another Jordan Peele, kind of evolved more so into Nope. You know,
I don't know about this, y'all.
But it went into Nope. However, when I really got to dig in and got to understand my connection and all of that, you know, and what the future held, you know, to use another Jordan Peele, when it became Us.
For Us,
it became Us. yeah.
That's perfect.
So Get Out, Nope, Us. But
yeah.
You know, so now we're at the Us part where it's like, you know, how are we making this place the place we want it to be? You know, how are we honoring our ancestors? How are we making this place a outlet for creativity and innovation?
Yeah. And there's been so many key players in that recently, like emerging key players too. I mean, I'll name a few just because I think they're worth naming, like Build in Tulsa, the Techstars Accelerator that's come to town, Act House Tulsa, like all of these just different ways of creating new pathways for underrepresented founders in the tech space, and specifically targeting the Black community in Tulsa, a community that like has deserved this kind of reconciliation. And I think it's interesting. A lot of people will tell you the type of reconciliation that this community deserves, but it's like, I don't know if that can be narrowly defined. And I don't know. It's interesting to kind of think about how, I don't know. I don't know if interesting is the right word, but it is interesting to see how the opinions have evolved over the years, how it's come into a 21st century understanding. I mean, going back to Booker T is the first place that I learned about the Black Wall Street Massacre. And that feels like, and that fact alone is being contested in our Oklahoma like court system of like whether or not I should have learned it at that time, which is kind of crazy to think about. But I don't know. I think it's the whole conversation about the racial legacy of Tulsa and history is like, it's so interconnected to what's going on. It's living and breathing is really how I feel about it.
Yeah, I think that the last, what has it been, 2 years really, have been an incredible breath of fresh air in terms of the work that you see happening on the scene. Act House, Lightship, Techstars, Building Tulsa, Urban Coders Guild been around for a while doing the work. The original, Michael, you're old, but I appreciate you though. Yeah. I think that what you're seeing here is a reawakening to the potential of Tulsa in a lot of ways. So, I mean, as all of these orgs figure out how to collaborate and work together, I think, you know, moving towards shared and collective vision is key.
Yeah, 100%. Let's kind of touch a little bit more on an experience that I kind of know about you, and I think that is really interesting. We kind of shared this background together, but you've had a stint and time at City Year. So kind of tell me about what that experience has been like for you, and also how you kind of continue to do that work.
Yeah, so I proudly served at Rogers High School, Rogers Junior High, from the 2018 to 2019 year. So being in City Year, you know, funny enough, City Year was something that I really decided to do in between really setting up Black Tech Street. You know, I kind of knew where I wanted to go, but I wasn't quite at the place yet. So I needed something that I thought would just be a placeholder. But when I jumped into it, you know, it became so much more than that.
Yeah.
I'd always thought of myself as the person who 1,000% had to have his finger on the pulse, had to be in certain areas. And I do believe that that's true in terms of my purpose. However, I used to think of it in a way that was like, you know, I'm going to wither away if I do anything but this. And to some degree, I feel that's true. But being in City Year helped me see that it wasn't, you know, just in a classroom, just humbly working with kids. I felt like I would have been busting at the seams to get out and do something bigger, but I wasn't. When I was there, I was actually happy. Not saying that I didn't still have ambitions to do other things and impact the world in a more a bigger way, but the impact of being face to face with those kids, it was important in a way that really rivals rivals what I felt I needed to do, and and I was happy there, which I didn't expect. I did not expect to be happy just in a classroom, but I was. I was actually happier than I had been in a while at that time. So yeah,
that's so cool. I mean, I think that, you know, your kind of purpose that you've laid out for us as like wanting to have your finger on the pulse, like what an interesting way to have your finger on the pulse with kids. I mean, and especially kids in, I mean, really one of the missions of City Year is to place AmeriCorps volunteers at like underserved schools.
right.
And so to have like adult influences in the classroom with you is like something that's really unique. I mean, I think just they might not know how to react to you, and you might not know how to react to them not knowing how to react to you. Like, and kids are like sometimes like the harshest critics, but they get right to the bone sometimes too. It's really interesting. So I bet that was like obviously a humbling experience, but also a really uniquely challenging one too.
I mean, you know, it was challenging because it was humbling, you know, but it was, yeah, it was genuine. There was something about. I remember. I don't even know what it was. It was just there was a memory that I have. Like it was right around the holiday time. I remember being in school and just getting a certain feeling that just said everything is right with the world.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being in a classroom talking with my kids around that time and getting that feeling again. And it was like, I didn't think I'd ever get that again, but I've got it because, you know, I feel like I'm helping kids. So, and serving as a board member of City Year now, you know, it's serving in a different way, but, you know, there are times when I miss the kids.
Yeah.
I don't miss the conditions and the pay, but I miss the kids.
See, that's the ambition part coming into play. And that's fair to have. No one's saying you can't have that. No, that's awesome. I really appreciate you kind of reflecting on that time. I mean, the Tulsa public school system is something you and I both grew up in. And so to know that other schools are getting their needs met through an organization like City Year just like really makes me feel good about kind of the decisions that have been made to address those inequities. So I really appreciate that. So kind of we've talked about this a little bit, but you know, Black Tech Street is your organization with the mission of rebirthing Black Wall Street as the world's premier Black tech innovation economy. Black Tech Street is your organization with the mission of rebirthing Black Wall Street as the world's premier Black tech innovation economy.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see the direction of that? I guess what's your current forecast? Are we on the way there? Let's talk about some of this change that we've talked about in the past 2 years. Like, it's good change, right?
It's very good change. We're on the way there. So again, like I said, I think I said the last 2 years is really since 2020 that things have really kicked into high gear. So, but in terms of the actual forecast, we'll actually be able to talk more with you about that here in the next month or two. Black Tech Street actually is in the middle of its In 2031 initiative.
Nice.
You know, labeled In 2031 because, you know, creatively it's where we want to be as an ecosystem in 2031. So,
nice.
No, very creative. So in this initiative, Black Tech Street has done a series of convenings with different stakeholders, whether they be philanthropic, government, entrepreneurial, all the different people in the areas of the ecosystem that are around our 6 pillars. So our 6 pillars are entrepreneur support, narrative and communications, capital, workforce, infrastructure, and policy. And those 6 pillars are kind of the guiding forces that in the day-to-day kind of shade the kind of opportunities that we get for Tulsans, but in the context of In 2031, they're serving as the pillars of how we're going to create the strategy of where we want to get for the next 10 years. And when I say that, I'm not saying we're going to create a strategy and stick to it for 10 years because entrepreneurs don't do that. 10 years is a very long time. We're talking about building a framework that will help us get to where we want to be 10 years from now. So the way these convenings have worked are we've convened these entities and we've gotten a list of factors as it relates to each of the 6 pillars. Important factors, whatever touches them, like for entrepreneur support, whether it be access to mentorship, or for capital, access to capital, or workforce, number of black tech workers coming into the city. All of them, we collected over 212 factors from 2 meetings. One had 45 people, the other had 81 of these different innovators. Our partners at Second Muse, who have over a decade of building equitable economies, experience building equitable economies, have an ecosystem diagnostics tool called Digital Delta. And what this tool does is it's built for solving something that's called a wicked socio-technical problem, which I don't know who named that, but a wicked socio-technical problem are complex problems whose origin is difficult to pinpoint, but whose like effects are really multifaceted. So using Digital Delta, we'll be able to take the different factors that we have found and identify the factors that are catalytic. A catalytic factor is a factor that very few things affect, but if solved for, stands to have a domino effect for solving problems across the system.
Yeah.
So we've already got the factors. We're in the process of feeding them into this tool. What's going to result is a map of all of the different important factors in each of these 6 pillars that would be catalytic for us to hit as an ecosystem. Black Tech Street will then take point in coordinating the different entities within the ecosystem based off what pillar they operate in to say, what are some things that you can do as an organization, either programmatically or just in terms of how you're moving to affect the catalytic factor that you're most proximate to.
Oh, that's awesome.
So whether you're in the entrepreneur support pillar or the workforce pillar. And the idea is with all this consistent coordination between the different entities, if we continually hit these different catalytic factors, even in 3 years, we should see, massive growth, an explosion of growth in terms of our North Star, which is a Black tech ecosystem.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad to know all this work has been happening too. That's so awesome.
So yeah, it's been a long, this is one of those processes that's very long.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's coming along very well. I think it's going to provide a sense of direction because, there's a lot of things happening on the Black tech scene right now, an entrepreneurial scene, but having that collective and shared vision is very important. So I see BTS really providing that, and that kind of leans me into what BTS is going to be focused on in its second year. Our first year was really been about finding our footing. We've had a powerful narrative. We know we like ecosystem building. So how do we do this in a way that complements the rest of everybody's work as well? So BTS's 3 focuses are going to be the vision, community, and storytelling. So crafting the vision within 2031 and coordinating it. Building a tightly knit community, which we'll have some announcements on that coming out here pretty soon.
Yes.
And then in the storytelling aspect, using our narrative and platform to elevate, whether it be the different entrepreneurs or things happening in a way that really blasts them across the country. And those 3 things will kind of allow us to serve as kind of the breath of this rebirth movement, while like build serves as kind of like the body and infrastructure.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, that's so cool. I mean, really one thing that makes me think about a lot is just like how I love how localized and centralized it is to this geography, because I think the geography is I'm gonna struggle with the word here, but it's inseparable from the mission of the organization. Because Black Wall Street is here, and now Black Tech Street is here and is going to continue to be here. And I think like something that's kind of come into this national conversation is like, where is the location where like Black economic wealth is like shining the brightest, essentially? And I think that question already like kind of poises conversation and competition, as if it has to be a competition, because everything in business is essentially a competition. And so people might want to look to, centers of Black wealth like in Atlanta and try to compare to Tulsa. And it's really, I just find that whole conversation and dialogue really interesting, because like I don't feel like other even like underserved communities have to like argue for where where the location that we're all going to be successful is. It's only with like African Americans and Black Americans that comes up. Do you feel like that has come up in kind of the work and the placemaking and all that?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, whether it be Atlanta or Miami, which is becoming a real tech spot. I think Tulsa is well poised to be a massive center of Black wealth. I think specifically because, there's just a beauty in us, the stage that we're in and the history that we have. But when it comes to the competition deal, I mean, look, one of the things that I've learned this first year, I mean, it's in really just moving in this space is, competition is kind of for losers. If you can think about how somebody who would be your competition can help elevate your mission and to the next level, and then you kind of serve as a springboard for them, and it's kind of this leapfrog type deal, you know? everybody's winning and nobody's trying to smother out the other. But I mean, we live in America.
Yeah,
so.
Leapfrog is still a game. We're all still playing a game.
Right.
I feel like this whole conversation about competition, like, is something that also might have come up at the Black Tech conference that you went to in Ohio. Maybe not as like a panel discussion or anything like that, but it's probably something that came up. So, you went to that conference.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah. So Black Tech Week. Fun fact, Black Tech Weekend was, started by Felicia Hatcher, and, it got acquired by Brian and Candace Burkeen. But when Black Tech Weekend came here in 2019, that was actually when I met Brian and Candace. It's when I met Felicia. And I was working with Mike Bosch when they were helping to put that on. So it's like, again, just shout out to another example of how being in the right place at the right time positioned me.
Yeah.
So thanks, Bosch. You're still crazy. But you're always just dumbfounded at the level of talent that you're in the room with. I got to meet an entrepreneur named Demetrius who doesn't have much of a presence in social media and whatnot. But I mean, he just raised $112 million for his company. And it's just like stuff like that there are gems that are everywhere. Some of them don't like the spotlight. And the reason I bring him up is because we had a conversation and he was talking about, well, if you're in a startup game, to some extent, you're going to have to compete. Okay. Mm-hmm. I understand that. But when it comes to the ecosystem building game, and even in the startup game, when you do have to compete, being at the Black Tech Week conference really made me think about if all of these people in the room were thinking about how they could work together and maybe not seeing certain companies as competition and whatnot in an ecosystem type way. I mean, there's a way for us all to succeed, and then the level of competition that's necessary in a capitalist system can still happen, but it won't cause genuine damage. And I'm gonna tie this into what I learned in Israel. So when I went to Israel, I was there initially with 33 of the top 32, it was 33 counting me, of the top tech innovators across the world. Like, we didn't read each other's bios at first, but after I left, I learned I was arguing with somebody who was got a 9-figure revenue company, and it's just like, but anyway, that's beside the point. When I was there, one of the leaders who really helped facilitate the growth of the Israeli tech ecosystem said that one of the things that make it so successful is when they're in business, everybody's bitterly competing. But when the day is over, the person who bitterly competed with that person is secretly meeting them for drinks, trying to figure out how they can help them.
Yeah.
And he said that holding that tension, that attitude of competing where there needs to be some competition for the sense of pushing out the best product, but then actually helping one another on the back end and not actually trying to see anybody get snuffed out. He said that was the key to why they grow so quickly and why the ecosystem is done so well. So I thought about that with Black Tech Week, and I thought about that with the Tulsa ecosystem and how we can kind of incorporate holding that tension to breed the best outcomes, but also an ecosystem where everybody just wants to help each other.
That sounds like such a cool experience. Oh my goodness. And I love what you said about like not snuffing each other out, because that kind of that's the ecosystem that I'm kind of already seeing be successful, for one, and then two, like, is kind of popping up here. I mean, it's so right. You're so right in the sense that like anyone that gets that competitive edge or like maybe wins the battle, like being able to then impart that wisdom and help other people is like kind of the reciprocity that has to happen for this to continue to be a fire that's fed, and like you said, to not get snuffed out. I love these metaphors. That's so cool. I'm so glad that experience and those conversations are happening for you.
Yeah, it reminded me of so I was I'm a card carrying nerd. So I mean, I was ever since I was growing up. So yeah, I appreciate that. So it reminds me really of Goku. Goku is this insane dude, not a great father, but this insane fighter who loves to fight, and he wants to win, but he never wants to kill anybody. He wants his opponent to get better, so they can both keep getting stronger and keep battling with each other to push themselves to be better. But it's all love. And I feel like the Goku mentality is what the person in Israel I spoke with was really getting at. That we want to fight, we want to win, but winning doesn't look like snuffing you out, and it doesn't look like keeping you from succeeding. It looks like us being the best versions of ourselves, us coming together. I may still want to be the quote unquote best, but that doesn't mean anything at your expense.
Yeah, and I want to
You
beat
know?
the best.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So no, I think that's
a
it
great
right there.
that's a great metaphor, honestly.
Mhm.
I think that we do have a lot to learn from anime, honestly.
Yeah, we do.
I love that. I think that this conversation is ongoing, and really one of the things that always comes to mind when I think about like talking about getting involved in the ecosystem or ways to support each other is like, what are those things that people can do? So kind of as you've talked about this work and all of the labor that's already gone into it, what are some of the things that people can do to get involved in supporting this mission?
Well, so clearly you can directly plug in with Black Tech Street. I haven't really publicized this, but Black Tech Street is actually more or less getting ready for a relaunch, that's kind of happening. We've got a lot of revamping. Our website's being redone. Our deals that we've been working on for a while are finally coming to fruition. So like that's kind of where we're at right now.
That's awesome, and congratulations.
Thank you. So when we relaunch, there'll be some very specific ways for people to tap in. But generally, when you think about BTS, think about it as a broader movement. A way to help the Black Tech Street mission is to plug in with Act House, plug in with Build, plug in with your local entrepreneurs, plug in with people in a way that, you say, what are some resources I can offer you that might help you be successful? And, everybody doesn't have money to give. So clearly, it doesn't have to be that. But if you do have money to give, don't give mentorship in lieu of cash.
Yeah.
So if you want to help businesses, you want to provide access to the right resources, I think that's a way to plug in. But also buy into the mission.
Yes.
So when people talk about rebirthing Black Wall Street, don't say it's just something that might get Tulsa a little bit of attention. Actually say this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to be a part of something massive.
Yeah.
Approach it with that attitude.
Yeah, and I think that leads me to say something that I feel like shouldn't even need to be said, but you don't have to be Black to support this mission.
No, not at all.
Like,
not at all.
I don't know. It just feels like something that might need to be said, even though I feel like it doesn't need to be said. But it's so interesting to feel like, or to even communicate that sentiment, I guess, because like, I don't know, the past 2 years have been really crazy for a lot of people, and I feel like a lot of like race relations and kind of what I guess just really how we understand Black people in America and how everyone fits into what America is. It feels like it's really just defined a lot of things for me and kind of where I need to be on the right side of things, and I want to always be there. So I'm going to continue to fight the fight, and I don't feel like, I hope that everyone is inspired by this mission of collaboration and being good people to each other. It doesn't have to be I do stuff for my community and you do stuff for yours, and then hopefully we all succeed in the end. No, we can build together. I mean, that's kind of been a really good underlying thought of this whole conversation, is that building each other up ultimately can benefit everyone, which is awesome.
Absolutely. Benefits everyone, see each other's point of view. Don't reelect fascists who tried to take over the country.
Yep.
Things we can do like that.
Yeah, things we can.
That's how we help each other survive.
Exactly. Tyrance, thank you so much for this conversation. I've had a great time, and I think I've been enlightened to a lot of the things that your organization is doing. I think that everyone else is going to get just as excited as I am.
No, man, I'm really excited to be here with you, man. I appreciate the work you do, man. I've seen you move, whether you from City Year to Atento to in Tulsa. Like, you've been climbing the ladder.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here and we're finally talking.
Yeah, this is awesome. And the conversation doesn't end here. We got Grow With Us forever, man.
Absolutely. I'll be back the next week and the week after that.
Oh, yeah.
And however long.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tyrance, for being on this episode of Grow With Us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And for all of our listeners of Grow With Us, please join our talent network to stay in touch with our featured jobs and opportunities in Tulsa by visiting talent.intulsa.com. That's talent.intulsa.com. By joining our talent network, you will get access to our newsletter where you can stay up to date with our latest career advice, featured opportunities with in Tulsa partner companies, and our placement success stories. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify to be notified when more episodes of Grow With Us are released. Let us know what you think about how we're doing by rating and reviewing. Huge thank you to our editors at Rant9 Production and Jesse Ulrich. This has been Grow With Us.